Today I'm going to be reviewing Fallout 76 here in 2021. As many of you know, this game had a very rough launch back in 2018, and for good reason. I want to make it clear that I'm not defending Bethesda's actions prior to the release of the game back in 2018. No matter how good or bad the game is today, that does not change the fact that the game was terrible when it launched. It was a half-finished, buggy mess with no NPCs and nothing to do. Hardly a Fallout game. I feel bad for players that bought the game at full price, but I'm only speaking from my point of view. I saw the writing on the wall and chose to wait until last year when the game was sitting at $14.99 in the PlayStation Store to pick it up. So yes, Bethesda has garnered a bad reputation for the launch of this game. Honestly, their reputation would have been salvageable had they just waited even a year longer to release it. That being said, I want to focus on the game as it stands today. Have these updates improved it? Is the game playable now? Is it worth reinvesting in? Well, I'm here to give you my opinions on it. But first, if you enjoyed the video, then feel free to like and subscribe. I do video essays on all kinds of different pop culture topics and anything that really interests me. You can follow me on Twitch and hang out while I play some of my favorite video games of all time, including Fallout 76 and other Fallout titles. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Fallout 76. Right off the bat, I want to say that this game has improved greatly since its abysmal launch. All of the updates have filled the vast online open world with plenty of things to do. With 3 main quest lines, tons of new side quests, many fun and interesting NPCs to interact with, tons of challenges and daily ops, the game finally has life to it, something that was definitely missing when the game first launched. There have also been many patches to common bugs that were previously reported, so the dev team has clearly been trying their best to improve the game as much as they can. Now, I am a huge Fallout fan. It is my favorite video game series of all time, and probably my favorite fandom of all time. So how does this compare to the other Fallout titles? I'll be honest, it holds up. I'd even go as far as to say that it's better than Fallout 4. Many of the features that Fallout 4 stripped away from the series make a return in this game. My favorite being the return of a non-voice protagonist. Finally, dialogue has impact on the game again. Instead of it just being a placeholder like it is in Fallout 4, you can actually change the landscape of your game by how you use dialogue. You can accept quests, turn down quests, initiate violence, garner a good or bad reputation with a certain faction depending on how you speak to them, pass any series of skill checks in dialogue depending on how you spend your skill points in your special. If your strength's high enough, you can intimidate characters for information. If your perception's high enough, you can notice something about a character and bring that up to get more information out of them. A far cry from Fallout 4's dialogue options, which allowed you to say yes 3 different ways, with one option that meant maybe or not right now. It feels great to have these options in dialogue again. It's a great feeling knowing that your dialogue will have impact on the actual game itself. Now that being said, the dialogue is not as in-depth as it is in Fallout 3 or New Vegas. And of course, that's because it's still an online game, so there are some limitations. There are points in the game where there aren't any options except for one and you are forced to do it, so it's obviously not as free as other Fallout titles, but the fact that this is an online game, I can understand and accept that there will be limitations. The game has plenty of other times when there's not only different options as to how to go about solving something, but also has consequences for actions. The only consequences that exist in Fallout 4 is by the time you pick your faction, you have to wipe out the other factions, and that's about it. There are lots of consequences scattered throughout Fallout 76. An example is the main quest for Wastelanders. At one point, you have to help a super mutant Gale find her best friend Rah-Rah, a small annoying girl who constantly puts your life in danger. She is, however, able to sneak into small spaces and access things that aren't normally accessible to the player. Depending on how you speak to her throughout the quest, she will either like you or dislike you. At one point, there's a set of power armor that can only be accessed by her. If you were nice to her earlier, she decides to help you get that power armor, and you get an in-game reward. However, if you are rude to her early on, she will refuse to help you and you will be locked out of being able to get that power armor. That's the kind of decision-making and consequences that Fallout 4 was really missing. Taking a look at the main quest from Wastelanders, you can gain or lose reputation with the 2 major factions in the game. Having both factions agree to help you break into Vault 79 will make the entire process much easier. But you don't need them in order to successfully break into Vault 79. You can get in with the help of both the Raiders and the Settlers, just the Raiders, just the Settlers, or neither. And it's just a nice touch and a callback to the old reputation system from New Vegas. Again, it's not as in-depth as New Vegas, but the fact that this is a reputation system that we haven't seen in the series since New Vegas, that speaks volumes. While we're on the topic, let's talk about 76's special system. Leveling up has improved in this game over its predecessor Fallout 4. While Fallout 4 only allowed you to spend one skill point in your special per leveling up, 76 changes it to a card system, in which every few levels you can open up a new card pack as well as add one skill point to your special every level, and depending on how many points you have in a part of your special, allows how many cards you can add to that category. Every card essentially acts as a perk to your character, ranging from increasing your lockpicking skills, to not taking any radiation damage while in water, to being lighter and quicker with melee weapons. You can swap out cards, upgrade cards you already own, or stack cards. Again, while it's not as in-depth as the leveling up system in older Fallout titles, where you could spend an upwards of 15 skill points on whatever skill you wanted, and then select a new perk or trait, this leveling system is a step in the right direction. There's more opportunity for decision-making when leveling up. You can choose what cards you want and how you want to use them to your corresponding special points. Just more opportunity for thinking about how you want to level up your character. Compare that to Fallout 4, where your only opportunity to think about how you wanted to level your character was based on what special trait did you want to upgrade. Strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, or luck. And that was it. A common theme in this review is Fallout 76 is good, not great. It's not as great as the older Fallout titles once were, but it's a step in the right direction, bringing back mechanics that were stripped from Fallout 4. Now, the inspiration for this video was talking about the story in Fallout 76. How does it hold up to the other Fallout titles? Well, let's start with the main storyline, Wastelanders. I agree that finding old recordings from the Overseer is boring. That's why I much prefer the storyline in Wastelanders. Without spoiling it, the story takes place 25 years after the bombs fell in West Virginia, the earliest Fallout game on the timeline. The story is mainly about the player helping the Overseer of Vault 76 rebuild Appalachia by making contact with two major factions, the Settlers of Foundation and the Raiders of the Crater. The Overseer instructs you to make contact with both factions and recruit them into breaking into Vault 79, a pre-war vault that was believed to have preserved all of the country's gold reserves. The Overseer hopes to rebuild the US economy in the post-war America using this gold. I love this story. It's very small scale. The factions are new and filled with tons of lovable characters, and it's believable with where we are in the timeline. It makes sense that these factions would be the most basic ones forming at this time period. People who just want to settle and rebuild, and people who've turned to raiding as their means of survival. All the characters are well voice acted, with interesting stories of their own to tell. The quest sends you to many unique locations, all full of deep and interesting lore, and because the story is slightly more smaller scale, it resonates much better than Fallout 4's story, which acted as a fate of the Commonwealth is at stake, but had factions that were so one-dimensional and boring that the story just ultimately fell flat. I'm going to quote TKS Mantis here in saying, if playing through Wastelanders teaches you anything, it should give you hope for future Fallout titles. Even if it's not perfect, it's definitely an improvement and a step in the right direction when compared to Fallout 4. And I already like Fallout 4 as it stands. It's my least favorite Fallout game, but it's still a solid game in its own right. 76 and the story of Wastelanders seem to take the right steps by dropping the mechanics that weren't working in Fallout 4 and bringing back the ones that were. Weapon modding and crafting are back, some of the best parts of Fallout 4. Building is back. I don't really care about that feature, but a lot of players seem to enjoy it, so that's nice. Where the story of 76 might get weakened is the once again welcoming back of the Brotherhood of Steel. Bethesda just absolutely refuses to have a Fallout game that doesn't feature them. Now, I'll be honest. The Steel Dawn questline is a lot of fun to play through. I enjoy the story of the two opposing ideologies of the Brotherhood clashing, with the Vault Dweller from 76 being thrown right in the middle of it. That being said, Bethesda goes to great lengths to force the Brotherhood to be in West Virginia in the year 2102. It's already stretching it to say the founder of the faction from the West Virginia coast used radio signals to contact people in West Virginia to forge an Eastern chapter, but it's even worse when that's not even the Brotherhood you interact with in the game. It's a part of the Western chapter that apparently casually walked across the irradiated continental United States to West Virginia and somehow didn't die. Not only does this undermine the older Fallout games, it undermines Bethesda's own games, and the inclusion of the Brotherhood of Steel. So now every time I play Fallout 3 or 4, and I hear the story about Lion's chapter using airships to fly to the East Coast, in the back of my mind I have to wonder, why is this such a big deal? Not only is there already a chapter in Appalachia that we've never heard of before, but also, the West Coast chapter already walked across the wasteland once. It just makes the story of the Brotherhood of Steel so convoluted and confusing. Now, also having all these different chapters of the supposedly same faction with different ideologies and histories. Like many other fans of the lore, I always ask Bethesda, why not just make a new faction? It's just annoying that they're willing to take such huge liberties with the lore just to shoehorn in a recognizable faction in the game that's setting a timeline that doesn't have anything to do with them, and in fact, was an opportunity to tell a story that was entirely new. It's just an unfortunate waste of potential. That being said, the quest lines are fun, the story is interesting, seeing the rift in the opposing ideologies, and I had lots of fun playing through it. The end of Steel Reign even has a big decision that changes the landscape of the chapter. Bethesda just couldn't help themselves, throwing the Brotherhood in their game again, but if you can look past how it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense lore-wise, there is an interesting story with twists and turns that is fun to play through. So, in conclusion, is Fallout 76 worth investing in here in 2021? Absolutely. If you put off the game and were considering getting back into it, I highly encourage it. Aside from the main quest the game now offers, there are tons of side quests that I haven't even explored fully yet. Tons of daily ops, a new scoreboard tracker, new locations, tons of updates, and even a major update for expeditions in 2022. The first major expedition location is going to be the Pit, which was arguably the best DLC from Fallout 3. I also happen to be from the city of Pittsburgh, so you know I'm excited to head back there. Fallout 76 is an online Fallout title. If that doesn't sound interesting to you, you probably won't like it. But, that being said, its limitations are not distracting. With the new updates, even playing the game single player now looks, plays, and feels like a Fallout game. Sometimes more so than Fallout 4. I've really enjoyed my time playing this game, but just remember this is one guy's opinion. The best way to find out if the game is good is to go and try it out for yourself. It's very cheap now, so it's a low risk, high reward, especially if you're a big Fallout fan. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Fallout 76. If you liked the video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I make tons of video essays and topics, things that I find interesting and exciting. If you want to hang out while I play some of my favorite video games, including Fallout 76 as well as other Fallout titles, be sure to follow me on Twitch, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.